Hi, I'm Jason Houtsma, guitar instructor for worshipartistry.com. In this video, we're going to be looking at 3 different styles of capo and really what each one brings to the table. In the 101 section of our website, we have a whole lesson on how to use a capo, tips and tricks, all that sort of thing. So if you want to learn about capos, that's a great place to do it. We also have hundreds of songs in our song library that actually utilize capos as well. But in this video, we're just going to look at 3 different brands. Now, there's 3 things I look for when I buy a capo. One is I want to know that it's going to be easy to move. When I'm leading worship, a lot of times I'm switching keys a lot, I'm jumping around, and I don't want to be sitting there fiddling with a capo for 30 seconds to get it so that it works right. I want something that's quick and easy to move. The other thing I'm looking for is I want to make sure that it generally is going to keep my guitar close to in tune. You know, a lot of times you're not going to get something that's perfect, but I don't want something that the moment I switch it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to tune my whole guitar again. And then the third thing I look for is, honestly, I want it to have a low profile. I don't want it to be a big standout thing. If you notice, you know, I'm a minimalist. I don't have a tuner sitting on the end of my guitar. I don't have preamps. I want everything to be kind of clean looking. That's just my own personal preference. That might not be yours, but I'm going to talk about that as well. First, let's take a look at this Kaiser Capo. Okay, so let's look at this Kaiser Capo and look at it with our 3 criteria. First question is it easy to move? And the answer with this capo is absolutely yes. All you gotta do is squeeze right here and just slide it around. Real quick, easy switch. Now, how does it do with keeping our guitar in tune? That's kind of another story. For an acoustic guitar, it actually works really well. I see these all the time. I used them for years. They work fine for acoustic guitar because there's enough tension. However, I didn't even use a capo on an electric guitar for years because I had one of these capos, and I just thought, well, if you put a capo on an electric guitar, it knocks it out of tune, which this absolutely does. The reason for that is that there is no tension adjustment. You got one spring, holds it in place. So there's no way to lighten the tension, and obviously on an electric guitar you have to press down to get a lot lighter to get notes to sound good. So acoustic guitar, it's great for. Electric guitar, not so much. Finally, coolness factor. Like I said, I like a slim profile. You might not care about this. I really like to have something that's barely noticeable, that doesn't really stand out on my guitar. This capo obviously does not meet that criteria. If you care about how it looks, this is probably not the coolest one to have, you know? Great to play in your dorm room, great when you're hanging out, sitting around a campfire. If you're on stage and that sort of thing, there's nothing wrong with it, it just doesn't look that awesome. So my rule is I can use this as long as there's no girls around. Next capo is the Shubb. Now, I've used this capo for a really long time. I first noticed it when a friend of mine was playing one on stage, and it was odd because I saw him playing open shapes up here, and the way the lighting was, I couldn't even see the capo. And so that's what first really attracted me to it. As I mentioned, I like something that's a really low profile. I was like, oh, sweet, that one looks really nice. And it does. The other thing it has going for it is that it's an adjustable tension capo. So when you take it off, what you see here is you've got a screw that you screw in and out, and you can set the tension. So if you're using it on an acoustic guitar, you're in good shape with it. And then when you want to use it on an electric guitar, it's easy to adjust. Now, the place where the Shubb kind of comes up a little bit short is in its ease of movement. Right? Because we have to use 2 hands no matter what to switch the capo. It's kind of a slower switch. I mean, you can get it going, but I find a lot of times too in the switching process, the screw will come up loose. I'll have to make some kind of adjustment. So for example, right there, just moving from there to there, I realize I untightened a little bit. And what happens when you're not tight enough is you get a little bit of a buzzy. So it's a little bit, it's fine. I got used to using it. I've used it for years. And and it does offer me the versatility when jumping between electric and acoustic. But the issue with this one is that it is a little bit slower to move. You have to be a little bit more intentional about it. There's 2 hands involved. But when it's nice and dialed in, it's a great capo. Like I said, I've used it for years. All right, let's take a look at this G7th Capo. The G7th Capo is a little higher price point, but I think some of the features make it worth it. Initially, let's just first talk about how it looks. It's obviously a really low profile capo, very similar to the Shubb. You can get it in 3 different colors to match your guitar better. One of them is 18 karat gold, which I don't know if you can really call that low profile. It's very shiny, but I guess if you had a really shiny guitar, it would be a good fit. The movability of it and the tuning of it are kind of intertwined, so we're going to talk about that together. This is a pretty unique capo in that it's fully movable with one hand, which makes it nice for when you have to jump between parts. And the tension is fully adjustable. Basically, however hard you squeeze with your hand will create the tension. Now, there's pros and cons to that. It took a little bit of a learning curve for me. When I first sat down with it, I was like, okay, I've read some good reviews about it. I want to try it out. And I noticed that it took me a while to get the hang of, okay, how hard do I squeeze this thing? Because if you don't squeeze it hard enough, you're going to get that very similar to the Shubb capo. However, the thing that's compared to the Shubb, it's an easy adjustment. You can just quickly squeeze it harder. You don't have to take it off and adjust it. So that's kind of nice. Also, just it's a muscle memory thing. So it took me about 10 or 15 minutes of just playing around with it to get used to, okay, when I'm on my electric guitar, I squeeze it this tight. When I'm on my acoustic guitar, I squeeze it this tight. So you have to be okay with learning the capo a little bit. But I think, as I said, I think overall it is a nice feature to be able to do that. I've used it leading worship a number of times now, and it's worked out great. The whole one-handed thing is nice because I can be sitting there talking, or I can just make a really quick adjustment while somebody else is holding a chord or something. And it's just nice and easy to use, and it's something that I can use on both my guitars. And as I mentioned, it also looks cool. So those are the 3 capos that we looked at. Each one has its pros and cons, and the price points might make a big difference for you. You have to decide, what's it really worth to you to have something that looks a little cooler than something that maybe doesn't, or what uses you're going to have for them. But either way, all 3 of them do the job of changing the tone of your guitar as you move up the neck. So take a look at them. I put a little brief description of each one down below, kind of the pros and cons and a few thoughts on them, so you can look at that as well. Enjoy.